Thank you, Zoon, for the initiative. And I'm very pleased to be in such august company as the esteemed Mr. Victor Gower, Mr. Cheng Fang, and Dr. Wang Wen. And I look forward to a very positive interaction. And for me, it will be a great learning experience because I first went to China when I was a teenager. I was 16 or 17. It was the days of the Cultural Revolution almost 50 years ago. And I'm lucky to see China's transformation since the days of Chairman Mao, since the days of the great Deng Xiaoping, and now President Xi Jinping. And I think I'm one of the very few people, foreigners, who are still living, who have actually met the Gang of Four in the Cultural Revolution, Madam Chiang Ching, Chang Chung Chiao, Wang Hongwen, and Yao Wen Yuan, and along with Mr. Chen Boda in those days. So I was a student who first went there, and then for me, it's always a learning experience. And today, I think it's a very auspicious day, 20th of April, because on 20th of April 2015, President Xi Jinping paid a historic visit to Pakistan. And he made a speech to the Pakistan Parliament on 20th of April 2015. And that was when the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, CPEC, which is the flagship of the Belt and Road Initiative, which is probably, the BRI is probably the most important diplomatic and developmental initiative of the 21st century. That was when it was really taking off. And I was very fortunate that that same day, President Xi Jinping honored me with an award of the 5 Principles of Peaceful Coexistence Award. So this is an auspicious timing also when we are having this conference. Before I go to your questions, I think I'd like to give the context of the unique, special relationship between Pakistan and China, which probably has no parallel in the annals of international relations between two neighbors with different social systems, unequal in size, but joined together by a common iron brotherhood based on mutuality of interests, common values, and common worldviews. Pakistan-China relations, which started in the days of Chairman Mao and Premier Zhou Enlai, especially when the time came when Ambassador Geng Biao was here, and Ambassador Geng Biao was the one who really built this relationship. And later on, he was defense minister. And he came in 1978, and the Karakoram Friendship Highway was inaugurated by Mr. Geng Biao in September 1978. So this relationship is not tactical, Pakistan-China relations. It's not transactional. It's not directed against anybody. It is based on that commonality of interests. We support each other's core interests. And Pakistan has always stood by China, and China has always stood by Pakistan. And you can see when the Pew, the American public opinion firm, did a survey of different countries' opinions, Pakistan was #1 among the people having a positive view of China. 83% of Pakistanis view China very positively. And the same survey showed that 72% of Pakistanis view the United States of America negatively. 83% of Pakistanis view China as their best friend, close partner, and 72% of Pakistanis view United States of America in a negative light. And this is a public opinion survey. So this should be very clear. And irrespective of any changes in the region, in the world, or either in China or in Pakistan, the relationship is robust and resilient and has been moving forward. And this remains the case even till today. So this I would like to make it very clear. And when Prime Minister Shahbaz Sharif took office, after the vote of no confidence was passed, which was done through the Parliament of Pakistan in a peaceful and democratic and constitutional manner, the first day, his first meeting was with the ambassador of China, acting ambassador of China, where Prime Minister Shahbaz Sharif announced that China is our closest friend and strongest partner, and reaffirmed Pakistan's strong and resolute commitment to preserving, promoting, and protecting the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, CPEC, and in fact, expanding it to different horizons different domains and taking it forward at what he called the Pakistan speed. Because Mr. Shahbaz Sharif, when CPEC job, and he was acclaimed as a person who pushed it with a lot of strength. So this, I think, is a very important element that needs to be understood by our friends in China, that there are three issues in Pakistan on which there is a complete national consensus and broad-based popular support. The issue of Kashmir, which we have with India long-standing, the nuclear issue, that we have the right to have a nuclear weapon, which is important as a deterrent for our national security. And the third one is relations with China, especially CPEC. These three areas are on one area in which above party lines, whether it's the government or the opposition, whether it's a civilian government or a military government, whatever the shape of government, whoever is in office in Pakistan, relations with China is above party lines as enjoying across the board popular support among the political parties, provinces, and all the shades of opinion and in our system also. So that relationship cannot be changed. In fact, it can only be strengthened. And I would say that the regional context and the geopolitical context accounts for that. Now, what happened in Pakistan was largely internally driven Pakistan politics. Pakistan is a very vibrant, as you know, democracy among the Muslim countries. There are different shades of opinion. Mr. Imran Khan came to power in 2018 with 32% of the popular support and with the largest party in parliament. And he assumed office as prime minister. But 68% of Pakistanis did not vote for him or voted for other parties. So there was a very strong opposition also to his government. And there were issues of the economy and issues of political polarization. And then some of his allies slipped away from him and he lost the majority in the parliament. And that majority was then transformed into a minority. And then those who had gone to the other side, to the opposition, they became the government. And the government was formed with a 2-seat majority. You need 172 votes out in Pakistan's parliament, the lower house, to have the government. And they had 174. So this was the context of that. So we should be very clear that it was because of those reasons. And then for the new government, the main challenges are going to be, I would say, three. Number one, giving the country a healing touch, because there's a lot of polarization, there's a lot of tussle, and that is not good for the country's political stability, so that healing touch is needed. The politics of consultation and cooperation should give way to the politics of, in place of the politics of confrontation. That's the number one challenge, which is political, giving the country a healing touch. The second challenge is the economy, which is still in dire straits. We are dependent on the IMF and the World Bank. We have shortages of reserves. We have inflation, we have unemployment, so that needs to be catered to. And the third one is the challenge of the regional neighborhood. Our neighborhood is very volatile. We have seen that there are changes taking place in the neighborhood. On one side, we have an unstable Afghanistan, and on the other side, on the Eastern Front, we have a very belligerent and militaristic India, which is trying to be aggressive. We feel that this is an important context which needs to be understood, that when we talk of Pakistan and Pakistan-China relations, which will, by the way, you talked of change in foreign policy, there's no change in Pakistan-China relations. That will remain very, very strong. And that, in fact, if there's any change, it will be changed for the better, and that it will become stronger, deeper, and expand faster. So that should be very, very clear. And we also see a global context which is important to understand. I see three global trends which are geopolitics which are relevant. We see the retrenchment of American power in the region. In this broader Middle East or Muslim world region, this retrenchment is evident in this region after the defeat of the Americans in Afghanistan. We see it also in the broader Middle East. The relations with the Gulf countries, especially Saudi Arabia, have changed. with Turkey. So the retrenchment of American power, which is linked with in my view, the decline of the West. By West, I mean Europe and the United States. You see a certain decline. And I'm one who was educated in America. I studied in Georgetown University in Washington. I spent 4 years there. So I go back and forth to the US. The US I see today is beyond recognition. It's very divided, it's polarized, and it has weakened America's international image and clout. And Europe also is very divided these days, as you can see. So that is one trend. Then we see the peaceful rise of China, which is there, and China's diplomatic and political footprint can be seen from the Solomon Islands to Saudi Arabia. China is there. China has developed through hard work. And you can see that out of 193 countries, which are members of the UN, 130 countries have more trade with China than they have with the United States today. And the Belt and Road Initiative of President Xi Jinping, the BRI, is today the most important developmental and diplomatic initiative of the 21st century, which is linked with connectivity among different countries, cultures, and civilizations as a positive development, bringing people together on one platform. And the third trend is a disturbing trend. There is talk of a new Cold War. And this new Cold War we see already in Europe, focusing on Ukraine vis-a-vis Russia. And there's also talk of an Asian NATO, the Quad, the AUKUS, AU, KUS, Australia, UK, and the US. And NATO in the 2030 reports, which was issued last November, says they even talk of China as a threat, apart from Russia, although China is not part of the North Atlantic, it's part of Asia. And Asia Pacific is now termed as Indo-Pacific because they want to rope in India and Japan and Australia and other countries to have talk of containment of China. So this kind of talk we feel is not acceptable to countries in the region because after 4 decades of conflict in Afghanistan, the region needs peace, security, and stability. And that is why regional countries assembled in China last month on 30th of March with Mr. Wang Yi as the foreign minister hosting them, the neighbors of Afghanistan. So to bring peace, because after the US exit, it's the responsibility of the neighboring countries. And so we feel that regional countries should decide the destiny of the region and of Asia. And we see the resurgence of Asia because the 21st century is the Asian century. And China and Pakistan are strong partners in this Asian century to build a better tomorrow with no overlords and no underdogs. So I will complete on that count, and I look forward to a very positive interaction. Thank you so much for honoring me with this invitation. And it's a pleasure and delight to be with my Chinese friends virtually. And I hope to see them in person soon also, sooner than later. Thank you. Yes, first CPEC should projects be completed, which have been largely completed. The first phase of CPEC is over. We are entering the second phase, and CPEC should benefit local communities. 75,000 Pakistanis have gotten jobs. CPEC infrastructure and energy projects have provided an enabling environment. CPEC has provided empowerment for women even in very far off places in Pakistan. Zoon, you should go there next time to Thar, where women are driving dumper trucks and where coal is being mined and then it's generating electricity, and then electricity is going to the national grid. So we have resolved some major issues in that regard. And Gawada port is up and running. So it's something which is put faith in a better tomorrow for the people of Pakistan. And also, you mentioned about the further expansion of CPEC, and I think that is also going to be in the offing. So as far as that issue is concerned, CPEC is on the track. And I would say that the first briefings today, after the cabinet meeting, which is being held today in Islamabad as we speak, is going to be on CPEC. Because Prime Minister Shahbaz Sharif has given clear directions that we want updates not just on what is happening and how to accelerate it further at a faster pace, cutting through the red tape, which is an important element, unfortunately, in Pakistan. So that is number one. Dr. Wang Wen mentioned about what can be the dangers or concerns. I think the concerns are that there are elements outside Pakistan in the neighborhood who are against Pakistan-China strategic partnership. And I would like to name two of them, the US and India. And they have been trying to destabilize CPEC at times. They are trying to undermine that. The US has also passed what is called the Strategic Competition Act in the US Congress. And under the Strategic Competition Act, they have a fund every year called Countering China Influence Fund for $300 million. That is for propaganda against China and against China's partners and friends, of which Pakistan is number one. So I think we are concerned about that. And often there have been attempts to destabilize through the Indian intelligence also. So this is a concern which is there. The internal factors which were there, there is a strong security element, because a lot of the attacks which were planned from outside Pakistan by the forces inimical to CPEC. So within Pakistan and the Pakistani system, whether it's the civil or the military or the provinces or the federal government, on that we are very clear that CPEC has to be taken forward effectively. Now coming to Dr. Victor Gower, I think he, I would say great minds think alike, because I have recently written an article which I will send to Zoon, and please pass it on to Mr. Victor Gower. It's called China and the Muslim World. And I mentioned that the article was in the context of Mr. Wang Yi's visit to Islamabad on 22nd of March, where he was honored as a guest of honor to address for the first time ever the annual Foreign Ministers Conference of the OIC, the Organization of Islamic Cooperation, which has 57 members. So when he talks of China-Pakistan friendship plus, I've already talked of a Pakistan-China-Saudi Arabia triangle, which is emerging. And you know, last week, President Xi had a very good conversation with the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia, Mohammed bin Salman, on 15th of April, I think it was, a telephone conversation. And we have been very clear that this Xinjiang card being played by certain Western countries is unacceptable. It is interference, it is propaganda, and we reject it. And among Muslim countries, Pakistan has been leading in that regard. So we have also mentioned that. And it's very interesting when Chairman Mao appointed General Geng Biao as ambassador of China to Pakistan. He said, look after Pakistan, because Pakistan will be China's a window to the West, to the outside world. And we are playing that role now, what Chairman Mao had said 60 years ago. So in that context, also he mentioned about democracy. On democracy, there was a survey by Harvard University, Ash Center, July 2020. And that was a survey of Chinese public opinion over a 15-year period, from 2003 to 2018. And they said that 90% of Chinese people are either fully satisfied or more than satisfied with governance in China under the Communist Party of China, the CPEC. So I think that the facts are very clear. And if 15 million Chinese go abroad as tourists, all 15 million return back to China after their tourism. So this kind of American propaganda does not wash, because the US has been using this as a certain kind of a card to take it forward. So I feel that it's important that especially now with China's role in the BRI and Pakistan-China strategic partnership, I would like to assure Mr. Victor Gower that we are playing that role already. Already when the meeting took place on 30th of March in China, hosted by Mr. Wang Yi, the neighbors of Afghanistan, there was a separate meeting of Pakistan, Afghanistan, and China, trilaterally, focusing on CPEC and how to expand it further. There were two other questions focusing on India. India is very interesting. After India's militaristic and belligerent policies toward China, they tried to provoke a clash with China in Galwan in May 2020 and January 2021, for which Americans gave them the intelligence support, by the way, because Americans now have a strategic partnership with India, which is military and intelligence also. Indians came to us and they asked for a ceasefire according to the line of control. And this ceasefire, because they were fearing a two-front situation between China and Pakistan together. And this ceasefire is now holding on February 2021. And I'm hopeful that after Mr. Wang Yi's visit to Delhi, when he went there on 25th of March, he said that Let's keep the border issue aside with India, and let's try to have normal relations and better relations. And I hope India accepts that offer, because India has $125 billion worth of trade with China. So we feel that India's policies, unfortunately, is still they have to make a choice. Whether they want to be part of the American game plan of so-called containment of China, which goes against the tide of history. So they should not be on the wrong side of history. But I would also like to mention, for the first time in 25 years, Pakistan, China, and India are on the same page on a global issue, Ukraine. All three of our countries abstained in the UN voting, and also the UN Human Rights Council on the issue of Ukraine. So I think there is a certain convergence, and that we don't want the European Cold War, which is taking place in Ukraine, to come to Asia. And we talk of a new international order. I think that we have not condoned what Putin did, because we feel that there should not be any violations of any country's territorial integrity and sovereignty. But we do not want to be part of any bloc politics and Cold War. And I think the way forward is what is the vision of China about the new international order, which is based on UN principles, the principles of the UN Charter, the principles of international law, and the 5 principles of peaceful coexistence, and on which there is equality and reciprocity of relationship and a win-win cooperation, not based on bloc politics against this country and that country. And after so many years of conflict, where America squandered $6.5 trillion on the so-called war on terror, killing 1 million Muslims, and also devastating the whole region with 342,000 bombs, drones, and missiles in Muslim countries which have been devastated. We cannot afford a new Cold War. And these are figures given not by me, but by the American University, the Brown University, Costs of Conflict Study, which was issued in November 2021. So I think what China is giving is a vision, and China is not against any country. China has not invaded any country, not occupied any country, not interfered in any country. If there's cooperation based on mutual benefit, we should welcome them. And that is what most of the third world countries and most of Asia wants, and most of what the international community wants. So I think that is the way to go in the future. I think lastly, I want to mention, I still remember reading that President Eisenhower, before he left office, on 17th of January, 1961, he made a speech. He said, Americans should watch out for the military-industrial complex, which is always looking for enemies. It was the Soviet Union in the Cold War, then it was Muslim countries, now they're looking for China. And with a budget of $784 billion military budget, I think that this kind of containment and Indo-Pacific and these strategies, these are tried, tested, and failed strategies, because they try to have a strategy to demonize China, to damage China's image, to destabilize China and friends of China. So we don't want to be part of that. We want to be part of a peaceful and prosperous future based on cooperation, not conflict and confrontation. And I think we are on the right side of history, and I think that time will prove us right. Thank you so much.